Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about an absolutely crazy story of a former TV star turned Black Lives Matter activist turned full-blown criminal who recently got sentenced to federal prison for defrauding people out of donations post George Floyd, post the Black Lives Matter riots, to the tune of nearly $500,000. Now, everything about this story, everything about this individual is hilarious in every possible way, so we're gonna have a great time going over this. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay.
And I also want to say that on Wednesday, October 23rd, I will be at the Sovereign House at 7 p.m. for a live debate, one of the Soho debate series, versus a person called Joshua Equal. And this person will be making the argument against me that it is the libertarian position to vote for Kamala Harris in this presidential election. You're gonna want to tune in for that. Register with the link in the description of this video if you can be there in person, because I'd absolutely love to meet you guys. Now, let's get into the actual story.
Right at noon, we begin with breaking news. The FBI and Toledo police are raiding the house owned by High Frequency Ohio. Sir Maejor Page, a key member of the group.
So the man at the center of this is a man called Conyers-Page, who is also known as Sir Maejor Page. Very questionable nickname there, and how he was recently sentenced to serve 42 months in a prison in Ohio on federal charges. Prosecutors argue that Page took money donated to his organization through Facebook and used it for travel, personal items, and a home in Toledo.
Yeah, Amanda, the FBI has arrested Sir Maejor Page, legal name Tyree Conyers-Page. I want to show you what the scene is like here in the Central City right now. The FBI is just finishing up their search of this house on the 2000 block of Glenwood here in Central Toledo. Now, the FBI and Toledo police have been out here since about 7:30 this morning searching the home. A complaint was filed with the FBI's National Threat Operations Center back in April, alleging that Page was fraudulently utilizing a Black Lives nonprofit organization. They claim he was misrepresenting himself and posing as a Black Lives Matter leader.
Now, before I go further into the details, I do want to point out for everybody out there in the audience that this man with two different names happens to be the whitest Black Lives Matter activist since Shaun King, and that's because this guy is actually an albino.
Oh, so you said that it was a white guy. What happened?
And you might think, Sean, that is irrelevant information, but the fact of the matter is, it absolutely is relevant, it is fascinating, and he also had a very sketchy past prior to this that should have raised suspicion due to the fact that he was running this Black Lives Matter Greater Atlanta area organization, and obviously it just was not up to snuff. So I'm gonna roll into a news segment from 7 years ago out of Atlanta that will give you an idea of how crazy this person is and why he makes the perfect spokesperson for BLM, in my opinion.
He has been at the center of two Fox 5 I-Team investigations, and now the Atlanta man accused of impersonating a police officer and posing as an FBI agent wants to be at the center of city council.
Yeah, you might know Tyree Page as Sir Maejor. He's been an outspoken activist with Black Lives Matter of Greater Atlanta.
So that's one hell of an intro from the I-Team over at Fox in Atlanta. A man accused of impersonating a police officer and an FBI agent wants to be at the center of city council.
He calls himself Sir Maejor Page, leader of Black Lives Matter of Greater Atlanta, a group that broke off from the original Black Lives Matter organization here in Georgia.
I come over here and I watch what's going on and I hold these cops accountable.
But in the last year, authorities would arrest Page multiple times for impersonating a police officer. One of those came while Page took it upon himself to direct bus traffic at a downtown MARTA stop, then demanding to know who was in this car.
Sir, would you roll your window down? I would like to identify you.
He found out who he was. The man was an Atlanta cop. That would become the third time Page would be arrested for impersonating a police officer before he walked into the Sloppy Floyd building with a gun. According to a report from the private company Dynamic Security, Page refused to show ID to their staff, claiming he was with the FBI and they were hindering an investigation. Somehow a Dynamic Security supervisor let him through. This is a surveillance picture from inside the Secretary of State's corporate records office showing an armed Page waiting in line.
Now, I also want to point out that there is a toupee that is impersonating someone's hair on top of this man's head that I don't quite understand, and I think it is very, very important to highlight that that is one of the most ridiculous hairdos I've ever seen. And believe me, as somebody who is well aware of the fact that I do not have the best hair in the United States of America, you have to go above and beyond to portray yourself himself with such horrible hair that I will actually comment on this. So yeah, this guy had been investigated by the local Atlanta affiliate for all these different other crazy things, including 2 different impersonations of law enforcement officers. So is it all that surprising that he ended up running a fraudulent BLM organization? In fact, considering the main BLM organization was actually fraudulent, is this surprising at all? Or maybe is he just not fraudulent? He's just following in the footsteps of the original BLM organizers. Again, let me know what you think down in the comments below.
And today, he announced his plan to run for Atlanta City Council president. Maejor's team says he filed his paperwork this morning at City Hall and that he's running for council president because he has a, quote, social responsibility and moral obligation to step up. Page ultimately pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor obstruction charge and is currently on probation. As for the other charges against Page, they were dropped.
So there's a reason I decided to highlight this new segment in particular, and that's the reason right there, because I like to communicate a bit of a story to you guys, a bit of a narrative in every video that I bring to you, and this perfectly encapsulates who this man is. Somebody accused of committing crimes, somebody with a lengthy criminal history, saying that he needs to step up into the world of activism, he needs to serve in government because he's being called due to the fact that he has this greater responsibility. And what was that greater responsibility? Being an advocate for Black Lives Matter. Now, this guy is going super hard, and probably it has to do with what I'm going to call albino syndrome or an albino complex in this particular moment, and trying to be the most pro-Black public-facing person he could possibly be. But in reality, as we find out, and he has been convicted of these charges, by the way, he's nothing more than a common thief. He's nothing more than what they highlighted in the first half of that, which is a criminal impersonator rather than somebody who's actually a legitimate advocate for a good cause.
Ultimately, the FBI says Sir Maejor Page has spent over $200,000 on personal items generated from donations received from that account with no identifiable purchase for social or racial injustice.
So we go to the Daily Mail and we find out that in 2020, Page created social media and GoFundMe pages under the name Black Lives Matter of Greater Atlanta, and he's accused of exploiting the murders of George Floyd to fraudulently collect $500,000 from over 1,000 donors. Investigators say he kept money for himself to fund his lavish lifestyle, evidenced by clips played in U.S. District Court on Tuesday, which he raps about making 6 figures while putting on gold cufflinks, the Toledo Blade reports. So there's more than a few photos in this Daily Mail article of him dressed up in fancy suits. There's one where he's popping the watch right there, and I actually have a robot watch on me right now. It's not as fancy as the one that he's wearing, and you could see all over his social media he's bragging and flexing, and of course had this rap album and whatnot, and to me it's pretty damn hilarious. But in addition to that, because the Daily Mail is a tabloid, and this is one of the reasons why I love tabloids from time to time in certain instances, there's a caption underneath his mugshot which I just find to be absolutely hilarious, so I'm gonna have to read it for all of you guys out there in the audience. Sir Maejor Page, who calls himself the world's sexiest albino, has gone on trial accused of conning donors out of $500,000. So here's the photo of him with the gold cufflinks, but it's important for you guys to understand that the personal purchases went beyond fancy clothes for this individual, which maybe if you had a good enough lawyer, you could argue were to make him look better in order to solicit more donations as the head of this organization. He also bought himself a single family home in Toledo, and his lawyers have an absolutely hilarious explanation for why he purchased this home, which by the way was his primary residence. Page's lawyers disputed the allegations and told the court that his client intended to use the property and the funds to set up a community or battered women's shelter. FBI agent Matthew DeSorbo testified that the money from the charity's account was often used on restaurants and retailers in the Toledo area, with over $100,000 spent on the house in the city's Old West End. Now, to be 100% clear, even though this man has been accused and convicted of misappropriating these funds, and it's clear and obvious he bought this single family home for himself, and this is in line with the pattern from Black Lives Matter, even the legitimate organization, where they end up wasting donors' funds on properties. This was not particularly high-end by comparison, but also, even though it's not high-end by comparison, being a home valued a little bit over $100,000, the fact is he's accused accused of stealing $500,000, so as a percentage of the donations, this home's value is actually more than what the BLM organization proper spent on property by comparison. Now again, we go back to the Daily Mail article. So it says Black Lives Matter Greater Atlanta ended in May 2020 in the red, according to Bank of America records shown to jurors. But after George Floyd on May 25th that year, donations began rushing in. By mid-June, $36,493.80 had been donated from its Facebook fundraising page to the Bank of America account, as America was racked by protests and discussion over police brutality and anti-black racism. In July, $370,000 was transferred from the Facebook fundraiser to the Bank of America account, with another $53,000 wired in August, according to prosecutors.
Another member of High Frequency, Sir Maejor Page's organization, Ron Goolsby, tells me Sir Maejor Page didn't live in this house, but stayed here some time. Goolsby is a close friend to Sir Maejor Page. He tells me High Frequency bought the house to shelter battered women and other victims of domestic violence. Ultimately, Goolsby says he's not worried about the FBI searching the home. He believes whatever they have won't stick. As he says, Sir Maejor has faced similar charges before. Toledo police have been out here for quite a few hours. In that time, our photographer saw officers pull out 2 or 3 big boxes, a big TV, and other items that looked like a fire pit. And we've also seen officers sifting through recycling and trash outside. One neighbor tells us the group moved into the house about a month ago and have had a few parties, but it's been mostly quiet.
Now, it's also important for you guys to understand that Page basically started misappropriating the funds immediately when they started flooding in. They got their hugest donation, which was the $370K, in July of that year. And it's not said in this particular article, but I do believe that one of the things that is understated in terms of impact is the Rayshard Brooks shooting, because that actually happened in Atlanta. But by August, he actually spent the $108,000 on the Toledo home, which is the centerpiece of this particular case. So this guy thought he wasn't going to get caught after getting a huge amount of money in July of 2020, $370,000 for Black Lives Matter for the greater Atlanta area. And then he turns around and buys a home in Toledo, Ohio, the very next month. August of the next year. And he says, oh, don't worry, I was going to have plans for a community center or, a women's shelter or whatever. You could totally trust me. Also, do you like my gold cufflinks? Now, the nonprofit was listed as being headquartered in Atlanta and had received 1,000 donations after Facebook account holders set up donation portals for their birthdays or other occasions. But after the organization lost its federal tax exempt status and its Georgia incorporation, donors became concerned and began asking questions. Among them was a Facebook user called Sarah Mills, whose message to Page was submitted as evidence. "It's wrong what you are doing. You should not be tricking people this way," she said. Now, they were reassured that the funds were being used in order to support Black Lives Matter causes, but obviously we find out through the trial that that's not real. We also have more photos of him dressed in suits wearing an I Can't Breathe mask, which is just ridiculous and absurd in every possible way. But again, like I said before, that home purchase in August, right after he got the big donations, was the death nail for his case, because according to the FBI, he actually tried to cover up the purchase agreement via a non-disclosure agreement. And if you're not planning on doing anything wrong, if you're not misappropriating funds, that would be completely and totally unnecessary. Now, they were also able to recover firearms that he purchased with this money that was transferred from the Black Lives Matter charity to his personal account, and other ridiculous things, including 16 blue suits that he bragged about in a rap video, because all of these idiots have to be budding rappers. Now, some of my favorite images from this are the feds raiding this property while it has a Black Lives Matter sign, but them also taking out this jumbo giant big screen TV that was purchased with donation funds for the home that was totally not his personal residence and was definitely going to be set up in the future to 100% be a battered woman's shelter or whatever, community center, whatever he was saying it was. Just don't worry about it. I mean, that TV is so new. It actually still has the yellow tag on the bottom right corner of it from the store. So this guy just living up in the life of luxury on the Black Lives Matter donor dime, and to me is kind of comedic gold. Also, the fact that he's an albino.
Oh, so you said that it was a white guy. What happened?
And a former Hollywood actor. He was in that show American Horror Story season 3. It's just A+ material all the way. Now, like I said, he was sentenced to 42 months in a federal prison. With good behavior, he will likely be out after 2 to 3 years. And let's be perfectly honest, that is very likely to be the case. But this is a cautionary tale. Now, look, I know a lot of people out there in my audience are not feeling all that bad for the people who donated money to this organization and got completely ripped off because they don't like Black Lives Matter, the organization. And honestly, if you donated to the real organization, you would have got ripped off as well. But the fact of the matter is, there is a lesson we can all take away from this, which is first and foremost, especially right now while we have these hurricanes and all the damage and all these different Facebook fundraisers, which is just because something sounds like the name of an organization you want to donate to doesn't mean you should donate online like that, because there is a good chance that you could also be scammed in a similar way. And it's obviously much more tragic when we're talking about the victims of a hurricane or something like that. On top of that, I want to point out, if it has Black Lives Matter on it, there is a better than not chance that it is being run by a criminal, by a scammer, somebody who's looking to personally profit off of this. But this one is notable because the guy's literally an albino, which means he is quite literally the whitest black guy of all time, next to Shaun King, of course. And to me, that adds additional comedic value to this particular story. But I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via the sport links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the comedy gold associated with this case. Till next time.